Yes, we are about to start our study today. We start with a message from the book Green Light by the Spirit of Louise, entitled In the Street.
The street is an important department of the world's school, where each person can learn and teach. When meeting friends or acquaintances, take the initiative by greeting them with cordiality and kindness without affectation. Walking in the street, take your footsteps naturally as we should take our life without harassing other people. On a bus, take a seat without disturbing other people. In a car, no matter how much of a hurry you are in, follow the traffic laws and respect others. For doing so, you will be protected against evils, which can embitter your life for a long time. When being greeted by someone, pay it back spontaneously and courteously. In this street, do not hold up people by taking their time and attention with issues that can be discussed at a more convenient time. On being approached by someone, although you are in a rush, practice goodness and kindness. Relating to duties and tasks from your work, speak with serenity and comprehension, even if it's only for a minute. When asking for an information, do it with dignity, avoiding jokes in a bad taste or disrespectful phrases, in the certainty that other people would like to be treated with respect as much as we do. You do not have to commit yourself to an inconvenient conversation. However, if it is brought up, try listening to it with tolerance and kindness, without upsetting the speaker. No one, in all consciousness, has an obligation to share troubles or conflicts of the street. In the presence of an expected problem or someone's accident, let us put ourselves in his or her shoes and let us provide the necessary help.
In that way, we start our meeting with our harmonization. We may close our eyes if we wish to do so, and bring the focus of attention within, calming our minds and hearts, perceiving ourselves as immortal beings essentially of love and goodness, created by God with love. All of us here, ourselves and all of those in the spirit, those who feel attracted by this purpose of studying, as we carry on our learnings, focusing on Spiritism, inspiring lives. We ask the blessings of the superior spirits, our benefactors, the dear ones who are always with us here, to enlighten us and help us to renew our understanding and expand our concepts in relation to reality and illusion. And as brothers and sisters in humanity, united with love, fraternity, and solidarity, we start our study today. So be it. Welcome all of us who are here as students, as learners, as we carry on our studies reflecting about the Spiritism inspiring lives, where we are all welcome to participate and contribute for this study. Today we will be carrying on learning about reality and illusion. What comes to our minds when we focus on the theme? Reality and illusion. Always bear in mind that our reflections are based on the immortality of the soul, us as immortal beings under the natural laws in the universe. So what comes to us when we read reality and illusion?
Illusion is the first one that comes to mind.
The first is illusion that comes to our mind, yeah?
Illusion by being something that does not exist.
Okay, which is not real.
Yeah, which is not
So reality, would we be right in the part or reflections that reality is based on the natural laws and renewing openly on illusions that we may bring as habits and conditions for our previous existences or even from this existence? Correct? Then we carry on here. It's still in the book, Self-Discovery and Inner Search by the Spirit Benefactor Joana de Angelis. She starts by saying the problem of interpreting reality becomes greater as one goes deeper in the structure of things. What is Joana de Angelis referring to, or how can we understand her thinking today?
I think she said about quantum physics.
Quantum physics? Why do you think?
No, because if you are going deeper into the structure of things, then you see that everything is made of the same particles, and inside the particles actually there is nothing, is energy, is the proton spinning around. So that's we going into the nano particles. Yeah?
Correct. So she's starting, helping us to reflect about reality and illusion, to start to think beyond physicality. Yes, correct, because we are studying from a deeper perspective. Then she carries on, the initial and objective vision grasps the image of the whim or of atoms and what they express under the force of agglutination of their molecules. As we use magnifying lenses, what appears before changes in order to reach and detect subatomic spaces where particles move themselves. So you're quite right, you're really tuned into what?
Quantum physics is my hobby.
It's your hobby, so carry on teaching us. What is she telling me now?
Basically, everyone, because when we vibrate, there is no barrier between energies. So that's why they say we are all one. As you vibrate yours, you vibrate all, we are melting. And that's all. Simple like this.
Do you have anything to add?
No.
It's nothing better than talking to someone who knows. Really, the complex becomes so simple, yeah, or the illusion seen by reality. In the psychological field, the same phenomenon happens. Under the mask of personality, we can find unsuspected expressions of reality that can only be identified with time and aid of high magnification lenses. What do we understand with this aspect? What do we understand when Joana de Angelis says in the psychological field? Is she still speaking about the molecules?
No, vibration. So now,
Now she's already going to the psychological and emotion dimension, yeah?
now vibrations. So what we think, that's what she said about what we think. Psychological phenomenon is a thoughts. That she means psychological phenomena as
I think you are right, because when she says in the psychological field the same phenomena happens, the way that we think and feel, it also ends up vibrating, and up for us affecting our physical body. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's helping us to upgrade ourselves, yes? And then she says, under the mask of personality, we can find unsuspected expressions of reality.
Is it right to say that because we have many reincarnations, in each reincarnation we have a different personality in which we are constructing our identity? So that's why seeing reality is complicated, because we might have masks of many personalities coming in the way we see things and constructing our references.
So what you are trying to say is that we are immortal beings. We have been living for centuries and centuries. Therefore, we are three-dimensional beings. Once we are in the body, a spirit, perispirit, and physical body. Now that we are in the body, under the mask of the transient personality, we carry the memory of unconscious level onwards, which means the perispiritual memory, which brings tendencies and habits from previous experiences. Is that what you say? Yes. And then she says, we can find unsuspected expressions of reality that can only be identified with time and aid of high magnification lenses. Is she also going beyond this reference of our own history, but beyond that, what lies deeper down? Are you waiting? Isn't it all higher faculties that we also bring?
Yeah, that's what you were saying last week. That we all can do and be distance. So do they mean here, that she mean here that with the time, and we will basically be the greatest spirits?
With the time, we will override the illusions on our personality level, personal level onwards, and the that we conquered throughout history, which are outside or detached from the natural laws of life, we become closer and closer to the reality, which is the essence of life that we carry within. And that is what we're doing right now as we carry on a study. We are actualizing ourselves in that way. We are more in contact, becoming more aware of our own illusions in relation to the material way of living, in relation to the spiritual reality, why we are here on earth, what we are doing. Sometimes we get distressed with some things which is not relevant actually, but it's still helping us gradually through the self-awareness, through the self-development, internal self-knowledge. We freely choose to overcome our illusions. Values that in the past were reality, but as we upgrade and update ourselves through the evolution process, we will override those as a free choice. Then St. Joanna goes on. The human being is a complex of expressions that alternate according to the circumstances and externalize depending on the events which uncovers the reality of each individual. Periodically, even that reality gives up to a more significant one that lies latent in the individual. The latter awakes and extends its fields of manifestation until it superimposes itself, predominating and uncovering the legitimate being. What is Joanna de Angelis now communicating to us, or how do we understand it today?
And when she says uncover the reality of each individual, I remember when we studied about the subconscious and I asked you, is the subconscious always negative or can it be positive? And I was listening to a lecture about the book Paul and Stephen. He talks about the Apostle Paul. And then Stephen, who was helping him, he was ill and he was with very high fever. And when he met Peter, they were talking about the writings about Jesus' teachings, and his subconscious was already developed. So he started to explain all what it was written for them in a new way. And they said, but he's ill, he's with fever, and he's expressing his subconscious because he was already a evolved spirit. So I think when we get to this point, when she says, and uncovering the legitimate being, is it when we will develop all our potentialities?
Yes. And even now sometimes when she starts to say, the human being is a complex of expressions that alternate according to the circumstances and externalize depending on the event which uncovers the reality of each individual. Don't we have surprises sometimes even in the same existence? That new information can come up, certainly through the new existences also, because where is the natural law based? Within or without ourselves? Where is God's laws? Within, on our conscious, deep down, the conscious. When we say unconscious, is not only our negativity or our limitations that we bring from previous experience. We also bring the achievements that we already conquered. Because we are not only shadow in the stage where we are. We also have lights, aspects of light. We also develop certain virtues to some level. And also deep beyond that is where is based God's laws. So as more as we evolve and go to meet ourselves more and more on the spiritual level, we are actually going to meet that essence.
Doesn't she also mean here, when sometimes you say that there are some situations in life which brings the true color of people. So some people are really nice until something happened, and them themselves will will never do that until you are in this, let's say, frightening situation, and then you kill someone, or the altar that you wouldn't, for example. Yeah. Does she mean all this?
Also because we say now, so I always like to laugh about, because in a different study in Portuguese we were talking about be kind and gentle, and then someone said, oh my God, up to now I thought I was a very kind person, but now I'm realizing that's the opposite. So as more as we learn and observe ourselves through self-knowledge and how we interact sometimes in the right circumstances, we may be sometimes surprised what emerges on our unconscious level. Yes, and that again, although it's negative, but it's healthy when we allow it to come up so that we can process it, that it doesn't dominate us anymore. It's almost like learning to be aware of our primitive aspects that we all bring, or shadows or limitations, and not hide them, not suffocate them, but allow them to be processed. Of course, sometimes they come out in a very wild way.
In this example, for example, if a person goes through a very challenging situation and, for example, kills someone, is it true that some people can remember it? Or we all will always remember?
What do you mean, remember?
In the moment that the act happens. Can something
happen? If you are conscious, you mean? It depends. Some people may be conscious or not, because again, we need to check, and we don't have the ability right now in general to know the intentions that are behind. But in some cases, it's almost like they enter in an altered state of mind, and then they do the act because they become unconscious, because the aspects are in the unconscious mind. Afterwards, when they did it, then become, oh my God. So much so that we can see recently, a lot of people who kill others, they kill themselves afterwards. Because when they come out of the trance and realize that they cannot cope with that, and then they kill themselves. But for us, there is also different aspects, which is the obsession process. Because quite often people are involved with those spirits who are involving others to kill, for instance. Of course, we learn that they stimulate, but they are not responsible, because we have the free to choose, but sometimes we may not be aware. But yes, we can enter in an altered state of mind, and then when we come out of the trance, we realize later on what we did, and it may be so painful that some people kill themselves afterwards. But of course, within Spiritism, we know that no one kills. We all survive and live forever. Whatever happens to us, may always invest in moving on, learning, accepting what we did, choosing not to do anymore, so that we fortify ourselves with them. Then carry on here. Cynthia, read it for us, please.
In the long journey of evolution, the Spiritist assumes innumerable behavioral expressions that increase certain characteristics in one. That happens unconsciously at first, and later it is consciously shaped and surpassed, as if radiating beams of light were momentarily blurred by glass and became freed of defective film.
Okay, what do we learn here now in relation to reality and illusion?
It's the many times we have to act in a certain way until it becomes a pattern of behavior. As one of them says, sometimes it's 3 days of times.
That we have a pattern. Now imagine, let's think together. And how about the long journey of evolution that we already are under? How many times did we train ourselves towards certain values? So what do I mean to say by that? All values, all desires, all habits, they are very rooted, they are very ingrained in us. So if it took some time to condition them, surely it also requires some time for us to decondition them.
So they came from somewhere, they came from acts we did, they didn't come, it's not, let's say, nature.
No.
They didn't come from nowhere.
No.
Something that we did for a long time and became a habit.
Yes, and merely if you look back in a loving way, for all of us who have been created simple and ignorant, with all the potentials to develop ourselves, but we started in a primitive way, and then surely we start to use our free will when we reach the human kingdom. And as ignorance or whatever it is, we use the free will in a wrong way. But we unconsciously were conditioning ourselves already. We were creating habits.
But you know, often even doctors, or even not doctors, they know that smoking is not good. They are aware, they have their own free will, they choose to smoke anyway, although they are aware of the consequences of everything, but they still choose to do that.
Yeah.
In that case, yes.
Yes.
So that's the free will.
Yes, the free will, really, no one, by the natural laws, under God's laws, law of God, no one can touch the free will of somebody else. This is why it's so important that we can help others to some extent. But when it comes to the free will, only us, I tend to say that the free will is the key that we carry within, which was given by God, that only us can turn in one way and another. And that is very positive when we see the power that we carry within ourselves. the power, the training of the free will. Then Joanna carries on. The experiences of evolution propose learning of legitimate values, that those are permanent, while secondary ones that are transitory serve as pedagogical resources for learning. What is she trying to communicate as in relation to reality and illusion? What is the purpose of evolution?
To develop a spirit, to, like you say, the moral progress, evolution.
Okay, to progress ethically, morally, which means the two wings that we are developing, the reason and the emotion, the sentiments, yes. And then in here she says legitimate values. As more as we persist in going into the direction, studying the direction of reality. What is reality? The natural laws, God's laws. That is the unique reality which is immutable. Is that making sense? So all illusions are mutable, correct? So as more as we search, study, learn, and accept and live according to the natural laws, God's laws, which helps us to promote understanding that we are immortal, we suffer also less here on earth. We ourselves become, let's say, the educators of ourselves in terms of changing our values and habits. The experiences that we undergo on life, they will have a different meaning when we connect more towards the reality, which is the greatest reality in the universe, God's laws. The rest is all about learning, isn't it? When we suffer, tell me something, when we suffer, are we suffering because we are already connected with the reality, or are we suffering more because we are relating to the illusions?
I remember Kardec, no, I don't remember if it was Kardec or one of the spirits that said in the book, in one of the books of the codification, I think it was Heaven and Hell, that every imperfection we have will bring us suffering, whether we like it or not. So if we're suffering, we can ask ourselves, okay, what imperfection is that now that's hurting me? And when she says legitimate values and secondary one, there was another question, I can't remember the number of the question now in the Spirit's book, that says what make the highly evolved spirits happy is to know everything. So we need to, God created us, spirits and the matter. We need to learn about the laws of matter to help us, because matter is our instrument, is what we use to evolve. But we also need to take care of the other side, of the moral side, as we always say, because of the legitimate values. We need to learn to be kind, to love, to respect, as well as to develop our intelligence. If you think in this way, there's a long way.
It's a lot to learn. So yes, very well presented. The legitimate values, those who are permanent, apart from what you said, what other values are permanent? The legitimate values. You said kindness, tolerance, respect, forgiveness, developing our intelligence. We also need to understand the natural laws, not sitting there just waiting others to be kind with us. Does that make sense? What else? The legitimate values. Discipline.
All the virtues, yes.
Detachment, is that also permanent value?
Detachment.
Detachment from things and people, and that does not mean be indifferent. Is that making, can you see the difference here? Because no one belongs to each other, nothing belongs to us either. While the second ones are that are transitory, serve as pedagogical resources of learning. So it's not that they are irrelevant, but they have importance in terms of helping us to discern which are the permanent ones and how to interact with the second ones, which are transitory, in a more, let's say, transpersonal perspective. Knowing that I can have them, but they don't belong to me. Knowing that I can be with someone, but knowing that that person does belong to me. Knowing that I'm today in a position, but that I'm tomorrow may be asked by the universe, things are changing already. Life is inviting me to move on. Is that making sense? Now carry on. Would you read it for us, Severina, please?
The manifestation that flow out of disturbing inheritances trigger psychological disturbances and other disturbances that macerate the being, leading one to anguish, restlessness, and mental disorder. We've had to do it twice, actually. At least twice. the manifestation that flow out of disturbing inheritances, so previous habits, yes,
Yeah.
trigger psychological disturbances, so as bad habits trigger problems, and other disturbances that wisdom macerate, what does it mean?
Disturbs that macerate the being, leading one to anguish.
Macerate, like
Restless and mental disorder. So here she is referring, when we look here, the manifestations that flow out of disturbing inheritance. That means or old conditionings or old habits that we, throughout centuries, through the different education process that we went through, quite unconscious, very materialistic, let's say, on the selfish level, they now, as we inherit ourselves and we carry on the journey of evolution, we need to recycle them. Remember last week that we were talking about recycling? And they will come to the conscious level so that we can engage consciously now in this recycling process, in this actualization process. But what a lot of times happen to us through lack of self-knowledge, we may identify ourselves with those habits because they are conditioned already and they're on the automatic level. But we are asked to be here and participating consciously now in our evolution.
So we could heal ourselves going the way back. For example, if I have a negative feeling, I could ask questions until I get to the point.
Precisely. It's very right. That is the correct way. If I feel disturbed, if I feel what she says here, restless, if I'm anguished, and if I embrace my proposal of self-knowledge, I may come down, may sit with myself, may learn to listen. What is that about me? Because then we are coming back to the cause. Then we will identify our limitation. And then also we have more resources, if we are willing to upgrade ourselves, to heal that, to change that, to actualize. Here I notice now that I'm full of anguish today because of my negative thinking about whatever it is. So, carry on.
No, because I recently saw the movie, The Joker, and I was thinking about mental disorder. What to do, for example, if all the doors close to you, let's say you already have a mental problem, but you don't seem to find help anywhere. How to find like the inner strength to deal with it?
Is that on the film or is that on reality?
It was a situation in the film, but it could be a reality for someone.
When we learn about the natural laws, we know that nothing happens for no reason. Is that correct? Do we all believe? Because God is allowing everything to happen for one reason. If I'm in a stage that I don't have much support about me, around me, and I reincarnated in that situation, and I have these disturbances, that is already the consequence of my past experiences, and that was part that I agreed to go through in order to recover myself, and it can be very challenging. Although there is no resources outside me, but remember internally, for us who understand ourselves that we are not a physical body, we are spirits, our free will keeps on moving, keeps on the active move. Is that making sense? So I can choose to desperate, I can choose to even try to kill myself in those situations, I can choose to complain the whole existence, or I can choose what?
Give up. Like this.
Give up?
When you surrender to the situation in terms of
Acceptance, resignation, usually is the great learning for all of us when we choose or to go through these challenging experiences, understanding we are not that being who is limited, although we are limited temporarily, but as a spirit who is expressing through the physical body, nothing happens for no reason. And the highest reason is to promote the spirit.
I used to, because I work with mental people, and I used to, when I come to mental health hospital for the first few times, it was very disturbing, and then you will hear, for example, someone in the room screaming, begging for help, and calling, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, nobody helps her, she's poor here. Then the doors came out, there was like maybe 5 doors, lots of people actually trying to help her. So, but even though that she got lots of people and lots of doors are open for her, no one is able to help her because she is at that moment in state of mind that no one from outside really
Was able
is
to.
able. So even if the doors are open, it's really with mental health very much internal. Obviously, medication is there.
The medication helps, the therapies help, but we are never alone, Cynthia, when we study the natural laws. We are never, when I say we, when we come back to Earth as immortal beings, no one is alone actually on Earth, although we may feel alone. But remember, our feelings, there's more to do with this here. Yeah, but in reality, no one is alone on Earth. Because we are all always connected with spirits. And we all have benefactors one with us, especially these challenges. Is that making sense? Okay. Can we move on? Then move on to the next one. Would you like to read it for us, Cynthia? Did we go through the previous one? Yes, yeah? This one, yeah?
Therefore, in the root of any neurotic disturbance lies a moral conflict. In the selection of moral values, the greatest challenge relies on the identification of which moral and ethical behaviors shall be recommended.
Okay, would you like to comment? What are we learning here with Joana de Anjos? If you take the first phrase, I always like to have it smaller, it's easier for us to develop our thinking around it. When she says at the beginning, therefore, in the root of any neurotic disturbance lies a moral conflict. How do we translate it? What is that about?
In the root of neurotic disturbance. Wow.
Has that to do with you?
No, it's like almost harsh.
Joana Jones is very direct. She's a very assertive spirit, so she comes across very direct.
But I think it's something that is so painful, challenging for the person to face. The person will be in conflict with himself, will be trying to suppress, and things start to come up, and then try to deny, and then everything becomes a crazy mess to a point that could cause a neurotic disturbance.
Okay, what else could we learn with the first phrase? Therefore, in the root of any neurotic disturbance lies a moral conflict.
What is exactly neurotic disturbance?
Or perhaps, how about reflecting about what actually means moral conflict? What means moral? What is one understanding about moral? Ethics and values. Is that referring to the morals, the human morals, which change to different cultures, different epochs? No.
Moral conflict would be against the natural law of God. Yes?
Moral conflicts.
If you are on the opposite of the God's law,
Yeah.
then you go moral conflict.
The moral conflicts here reflect our own history, where we as immortal beings use our free will contrary to the natural laws, contrary to God's laws, contrary to the law of laws. And in that way, now, going back, therefore, in the roots of any neurotic disturbance lies a moral conflict.
Some examples of neurotic disturbance.
Okay, what do we think is a neurotic disturbance of people?
Is it like when people clean the house too much?
Could be.
I think.
And then when we say about a neurotic, we also need to understand there are different degrees, yeah, depending where the person, the individual is. Yes?
Oh, I suppose maybe things like depression, OCD, and all things that would be even more extreme and require the person to be maybe having a time in the mental health institution. I remember the name of those things. Yeah.
Would I also be right in saying that a neurotic disturbance could be when I say that I'm very, very concerned that I think that you think what I think? You know, settled with that. That is quite familiar, yes. People think they ought to think what they think. And of course, that is a projection.
So
that is
even the small things of our daily that everybody has. Oh yeah, I heard someone saying that everybody's neurotic or something.
To some degree, they are a bit crazy. Yeah? There's a consolation in there. So now when we move on to the second one, in the selection of moral values, the greatest challenge relies on the identification of which moral and ethical behaviors shall be recommendable. How is that coming to us?
That by identifying what is the conflict, you can start to understand more of yourself, and then feel better with the issue, and then don't know how big the issue is, but please make the disturbances small.
Okay, so what you said would be like saying through the self-knowledge process, because we are studying, then the self is studied, that promotes self-knowledge and self-awareness, and in that way we identify all neurotic disturbances, whatever they are, values, and we choose gradually now to change them towards the reality. And the reality is connected to the morality. That making sense? But understand moral not as human morals. We are not referring to that. We are referring to the moral ethical values, which are God's laws, the values that are good for us today, tomorrow, and everywhere where we are, because they are not changeable. They come from God. All moral values on earth, they are changeable.
I have a question. I understand that, and I understand also that the moral of God is the most important one. But I see people sometimes having conflicts because they are judging themselves based on the human laws as well. They also can be conflicted, thinking too much about the other people are thinking. Not being themselves or not doing things afraid of the opinion of the people, not even though it could be with the God.
But that is not when we actualize ourselves according to God's laws. God's law in summary is love, unconditional love, which we don't know yet what it is precisely, but starts with these small gestures. When we criticize ourselves, or when we think, as the example that I gave, that I think that I ought to think what I think, that is the inner disturbance of lacking of self-love. It's referring to my low self-esteem. It is referring to my lack of self-confidence. And the self-confidence, high self-esteem comes through the journey of developing self-love, which comes from God. Self-love is nothing to do for me buy a new dress, because if I don't have the money, I wouldn't be able to do that. And God's laws, the universal values, that are equal for everyone. But if I develop the inner resources, the higher potentials within me, in that way, I'm really resourcing myself from it.
And they don't care about it.
Precisely, don't care. Usually we have that reference while we haven't developed our own identity based as children of God, creatures who are essentially good and loving. So because we did a lot of mistakes in the past, we bring that memory on the unconscious level, and that although we don't remember what we did, but it comes through our feeling and emotion level onwards now. Is that making sense? Okay. Then moving on here now. Whose turn is that? Cynthia?
An immense range of prejudices created a network of hypocritical concepts that confuse social codes with moral ones, that generates escapisms and justifications for some, and guilty for others. Such social behavior has generated reflections. Those reflections, when evoked by a cynical attitude that is absent of universal and rightful standards, they induce cravings, aggressiveness, pessimism, and allergy.
Okay. Perhaps it's too big. Let's go divided. When we take the first part, an immense range of prejudice created a network of hypocritical concepts that confuse social codes with moral ones. How is that coming to us? How can we read that now? Concepts that confuse social codes with moral ones.
I think what we were talking before is kind of on the lines of that, about what are the human values and what are the God law, and well, following the God law to have the confusion with the social codes.
Okay.
Maybe I have a good example. But maybe I'm wrong. For example, my husband is black, yes, and I come from Poland. There's no black people, basically. I have an auntie, lovely auntie. She moved to America, and then she came to visit me once I got married, and now with my husband. And she said, you know, I'm not a racist, but I'm prejudiced. But doesn't remember right. So I went to dictionary and said, what does prejudice mean? And she said, so my understanding was, because she was a Polish refugee in America, I wanted to, and often people do that, I wanted to be part of it. Sometimes we, I don't know why, we put other people from different places a little bit down to make us feel better. And although she was not a racist, there must be some, she said herself that she's prejudiced because of whatever that she heard from, maybe an experience, and she created this vision of the black people being maybe something, I don't know.
Inferior.
Yes.
That sometimes you have, yeah.
And so that, although she could, this is against with the moral laws, yes?
Yes. So confuse social codes with moral laws. Moral laws, God's laws. We are all children of God, brothers and sisters in humanity. It does not matter the color of our skin. But temporarily we may have this prejudice or the racism that we bring from previous experiences that are in our unconscious memory, and they come through now when we see someone, if it's in relation to color. But the one who has already developed the moral codes within, doesn't matter if they are with one is with a black color, with a white color, or whatever it is. Because that really transcends. Do we have another example of social codes which are not in accordance with the moral codes? Condoms. Would I be right in saying, for instance, here, the reality and illusion? In this country where we are, this is so important to see the moral laws, how they change from country to country, which is mutable and changeable and change throughout epochs, different epochs. Here in this country is legal abortion. But under God's laws, within the moral laws, is it legal? No, it will be an illusion here, what we're discussing here. Yeah? Why is it an illusion? Why is it an illusion?
Because our society helps us to be kind of blunt if it's accepting as a law which is not a bad law in the human's life. And then, therefore, we've got the illusion that it's okay to do that.
I think it helps a lot us to observe ourselves in our learning process, that we still, if we consider it's okay, come from a very materialistic viewpoint, the body, and then we also bring within the illusion that we bring selfishness, that we think we are entitled to do what we want. When we carry on studying Spiritism, we learn that even the body is not ours. Then we learn also about in relation to the free will, which brings consequences throughout our journeys. So it's never about punishing, because the natural laws, God's laws, is all about educating ourselves. Is that making sense? So we learn then gradually, instead of stopping a life, we start to value life, which life comes from God. It's a different understanding. Would you like to say something? No? The second part then says, that generates escapisms and justifications for some and guilty for others. Such social behaviors has generated reflections. Those reflections, when evoked by a cynical attitude that is absent of universal and rightful standards, they include savings, aggressiveness, pessimism, anarchy. Can we see that pessimism here, aggressiveness, is consequence? Can we see that? How would you translate it? So when we choose consciously or unconsciously to interact in life in an irresponsible way, that is recorded on our perispiritual memory, and sooner or later, even if now it's not affecting me, sooner or later in my journey, that will come from the unconscious to the conscious for me to redo my own lessons. Anything else? Is that clear? Here, when we take anarchy, where is that coming from? Do we see some aspects of anarchy on Earth now?
In us, did you say, huh?
No, on Earth.
On Earth.
Are we seeing? Oh, yes, yeah. So where is that coming from? That was quick to know, yeah.
From the past history.
Precisely from the past experiences that we inherit ourselves as immortal beings, come back in a new physical body with the old psychological and emotional values. Pessimism is the same. Are we dealing currently on Earth with a lot of pessimism? Oh my God. We need to learn to be more optimistic. We need to recycle Earth psychic energy. It's very heavy. And where is that coming from? Well, even easy for me, it is because this crisis going on in the world. Really? Is that an illusion or reality, if I think in that way? Illusion. Because Earth is a school for the spirits, while in evolution is the house of God. Therefore, is actually, essentially, understanding that is with love. So it's not what is going outside, it's what I carry within. We can choose to actualize ourselves within the environment where we are. And that is our internal challenge, to learn to stand up for ourselves, to develop our own individuality. Then moving on here, which says, however, we are able to unmistakably and simply establish parameters for the identification of ethical values. Those values are healthy to all cultures, accepted and recommendable, classified as expressions of well-being by the positive results that they provide. The other ones are reprehensible by the mischief of they cause, due to that they are considered pernicious and therefore negative. How is that coming to us?
It's giving us tools to identify what is human moral that can be negative and what is actually the God's moral purpose. And then it's given us tools by evaluating if that's applicable for the whole humanity. It's likely to be the God's law. And if it's just good for a few or some, it's not.
Very good, very good. How do we know if it's applicable for the good of all? Is that easy for us? When I say us, I mean humanity. Is it easy for us to know what is good for all?
No, and we will perhaps, like many people, will not know and don't get it right, because what's maybe right for me or what's make me happy is not good for you, and so there will be always a conflict. So you can't make everyone happy.
Yeah, and how do we move forward then?
Cooperate, learn, ask, talk, I don't know.
But I think sometimes it can be good for everybody, but maybe it's not necessarily
Ethical.
ethical, and sometimes in some cases it doesn't mean that it will make everybody happy. So maybe if you look to the distribution of richness and lands and things like that, you can think what is good is if everybody has a place to live and so on. But if that will make people with lots have less, then they won't be happy about that.
But we were talking about general good. But if, let's say, I'm not happy about something, but the thing is good for me anyway.
Yes, if I'm very selfish, if I'm living in this world, then I'm really concerned about what is good for me, and I don't care about others. Is that still prevailing on earth? Yes, unfortunately. But also at the same time, we need to be aware there are a lot of good people. More and more good spirits were coming back. So we can free ourselves from our illusion and develop more our references. So always asking, inquiring ourselves when we make decisions, is that only good for me or is good for others as well? And even if others say, I don't want that, if we come from an honest reality internally, know that it's good, but others may not want it, what do we do?
Sometimes we impose.
We impose.
What we advise, and depends how gentle you are.
Depending on which state of mind we are, yeah. So as we individually progress, we also can cooperate towards the progress of the collective environment where we are. But we do not help others imposing values. And we have the master, the teacher, the greatest teacher, which is Jesus. We more than 2,000 years is waiting for all of us to do our part and respect others. Is that making sense? Because otherwise we would get stuck in our process. I cannot move forward because other doesn't want to. Is that making sense? And yet we go back to this main key of evolution that we have, the self, the free will, which God gives us. So internally we are always free to do. Of course, we will not fight with others if others don't believe in us, because that is not the way forward. But it is standing up for yourself and carry on doing what we already know that is positive. What else comes to us here? It's interesting that Joanna Ginger says, those values are healthy to all cultures, accepted and recommendable, classified as expressions of well-being. What are aspects and values of well-being in our society? Which kind of values do we have in our society which still refer to illusion?
I don't know, money, beauty.
Money, beauty?
your diplomas and
Prosperity.
yeah.
Not that it's wrong, prosperity, but if I choose to focus on that, I'm a bit blind. So which are now values, healthy values, which manifest the greatest reality in our culture, in our society? What are values which are healthy to all cultures? It seems that we missed this module.
The commitment for us to look for our self-improvement, the charity that we can make, the way we interact with people. These are interacting in positive ways, in helpful ways, and like, avoiding conflicts, not by just pretending that you're avoiding, but actually trying to understand where that's coming from. These types.
Correct. When we try to understand the other, what happens within? When we try to understand other, if we are in this internal position, what happens within? Are we rigid or flexible? Flexible. Therefore, are we developing health? Yes. Yes, we are. And then what else she says here? The other ones are reprehensible, which are the negative aspects. So what do we learn here in terms of developing a healthier way of being? What do we take from here to develop a healthier way of being?
To have a reference or a parameter to be able to identify the ethical values, so we can make better choices.
Okay.
We might be, it's quite, if we start to think like in a practical level, taking into consideration all the input that comes from outside, all the references we have coming from the way we live now, it's a long way thinking to find this, reference with an ethical value.
Mm-hmm. So still we are surrounded by unhealthy values. Does that make sense? In general speaking, culturally speaking, in society, yes. But does it mean that we don't have free choices? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And my question was, how do we learn more about? And the answer will be studying as we are doing here. Because as more as we carry on understanding the reality, more we know what our values of illusions are. And more we also choose to upgrade ourselves consciously now. Because we need to understand that our illusions, they were created mostly on our unconscious level. Does that make sense? We weren't aware as much as we are now. But we can make a huge difference when we choose to stop our own limitations and shadows in reintegrating them within the real values.
It's a really fine line, isn't it? Especially when it comes to cultures, where we learn about obedience, we learn about, let's say, family cultures, and then going against our own internal understanding as immortal spirits. Today I may be Brazilian, but tomorrow I may be Indian. So then how do I understand, how do I interact with that culture, still respecting those that see things the way that they do?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality to me makes, the idea of reality is that it shouldn't be something that we're fighting with internally.
Why shouldn't we be fighting internally?
Because within we have divine laws within us. So we may not be able to decipher them as personalities, but as spirits, they're there. So when we're feeling that resistance and we're feeling there's something internally happening, then there's probably an illusion there that needs to be identified and brought to reality.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Because it's all about learning, so we don't need to conflict ourselves when the shadows emerge. It's all about, because essentially within we bring the love of God, and love is not conflict. So we just need to adjust and restructure ourselves gradually. Whatever shadow, limitation, or illusion emerges, that is just a part of ourselves. It's not our totality. And as soon as we embrace it in a self-accepting way, this is me, but I choose to overcome it and override my memory in new concepts, that will be easier to reintegrate. Then now we carry on to the next one. Danusa, would you like to read it for us?
The action of goodness on behalf of oneself, the social group, and the community constitutes the unbeatable ethical principle as a fruit of love and respect to the natural law that resides in everything. Virtue is considered, then, part of the ethical and moral value, which works on the profound self and stimulates it to grow and develop its resting potential.
Would you like to comment? Perhaps we take the first part and then we go later on to the second one, if it helps.
So the action of goodness on behalf of oneself, a social group, and the community, that's a process of leaving illusion. The illusion of selfishness, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The illusion that if I don't take care of myself, then who's going to take care of me?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. What else comes to us? Then when we say the second one, virtue is considered then part of that ethical and moral value which works on the profound self and stimulates it to grow and develop its resting potential. How is that coming to us now?
So Shwanaji actually is talking about virtue, remembering that in Spiritism we have the difference between ethical and moral values, isn't it? And then the virtue is going to be something that we can't develop in one existence. It's going to be interconnected with all of them. So virtue is considered then part of the ethical and moral values. So we're not going to be causing wars with human beings and their moral values, but we're also going to remember that the ethical value is immutable. It's part of the divine laws of God. And it's only with virtues that we'll be able to get that and to develop the virtue of honesty, of charity, of kindness, of love, of having faith in things the way that it's happening. So it's the combination of all of that together. And it all sounds really pretty and it's easy to talk about, but when putting it into practice,
It's challenging.
it's challenging, is where you go into the profound self and stimulates the growth. Because every time we try to exercise a virtue, there's going to be some resistance due to the illusion. So, and that's where the growth comes. If we look at nature, how does growth come? How does a seed blossom, you know? It's through that impulse and that hard work that's going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
What are you laughing at, Cynthia?
What else is coming to us? What comes to your mind, Cynthia?
Now I'm so confused. We need to hear more.
Okay, bring your confusion then. We help you. We help you. What are you confused
I
to?
think I'm so fixated with the word parameter from the previous slide.
On the previous slide, let's go back. What was established? However, we are able to unmistakably and simply establish parameters for the identification of ethical values. So what are you confused with that?
I think I'm stuck with these words.
Do you understand the word? Sorry?
I'm trying to create my parameter now, but nothing sense. I'm a bit stuck, but you can carry on with
But
this.
Cynthia, she says they are unmistakably and simple. Simplify it. So our parameters, we're going to have parameters, we're going to have limits up to where we
Boundaries.
can go. Our boundaries up until where we can go. You know, we can't go against nature, everything is gradual. So in our culture, in our being, in our lives, in our family, we're going to have parameters, but we need to set them a little bit further than our comfort zone. So what are they, that's going to be past my comfort zone? What is that parameter going to be for me? Because my parameter at the moment is pleasing people. It's easier to please because then I seem like a nice person, I seem like everything's okay, but internally I know that's going against my moral values because I'm not being honest, I'm not being this and that. So what are my parameters and where am I willing, you've said it before, am I willing to pay the price for putting my parameters up to there? This is where I want to get to.
Clear? You know where you are? Well, we have the ongoing process to clarify. Are we all clear what virtue means to us? Are we knowing that we are all virtuous people? Essentially we are. It's fundamental that we believe in that. Even if we are aware of our shadows, but essentially we are all virtuous people because we have been created by God. That is reality, that is not illusion. Is that making sense? We may be a bit distant and through our low self-esteem or whatever not recognize that, but we are all valuable human beings. Fundamental in our journey of evolution that we already consider that essentially we bring these values within. And then Joanna Janges goes on. In the same way, primitivism and its selfish manifestations such as perversiveness, betrayal, hatred, pride, and all badness are harmful attitudes because they disturb the individual despite their momentary and elusive sensation. Those manifestations are disregarded by lucid and laborious minds that are in charge of humanity's growth. What do we learn here? How is that coming to us? This is also telling, which is not written here, that reminds us the scale of evolution, where we all are coming from. So what else?
Because they disturb us. So every lack of virtue or every manifestation of that which is not good is going to cause us harm. It's going to hurt us. And Aldo talks about it. I think he took it out of one of the manuals books, isn't he?
Sim.
So, yes. So, let's say...
Thank you. I'm doing two things at the same time. That's
So if we look at hatred or pride, for instance, there's no way we can exercise hatred and pride or betrayal without hurting ourselves first. And if we don't hurt ourselves and we're managing to soothe ourselves with egotistical sort of barriers, eventually the consequences of that is going to hurt us. So it's going to disturb our progress because then we're going to need to heal ourselves and then get back up and then continue again.
Hold them in there. Hold them in there. Yes. But you said it hurts us. Would we also be right in saying that when we hate others, or what else Rona puts here, when we betray, we are already coming from a hurtful place internally? Does that make sense? We are coming already from that space, but of course we will intensify that. Each time when we have this move externalized, we are intensifying the internal reality where it comes from. So as more as we heal ourselves, more we will gradually free ourselves with those illusions that we bring. Because do we agree that they come mainly through pride and selfishness? Is that making sense? So as more as we learn to be humble and charitable as we are learning, and in that way we are soothing those wounds and healing us from within. Let's move on to the next one. Would you read that one for us, please?
Those paradigms offer the intelligent being a means to achieve reality, surpassing illusion, since they bear the permanent structures of welfare, peace, and self-accomplishment. In the selection of values, judgment arises in order to discern which conduct to adopt throughout human evolution.
Would you like to comment? No? What do we understand? Carrying on developing our reasoning in relation to reality and illusion by the spiritual judges. What does she refer when she says those paradigms? Offer.
You know what came to mind is that lecture from Elisa when she came in, and she said if we don't establish methods, if we don't establish aims in our lives, then we're going to go through transiting through the world, dispersing energy, and at the end we don't achieve anything that we want, and then there's the frustration. So here Joanna Jones is pretty much saying the same thing. It's if we don't set these paradigms, if we don't set these moral goals for ourselves, then it's difficult to overcome anything. It's difficult to even analyze, have I improved? Has something become better if I don't set those goals? I don't know if that makes sense. Is that what you said?
If you don't have goals, it's difficult for us to know what to do with whatever comes up within. Isn't it? So if you have the goals, it helps us to ask us from us in relation to what we are aiming for ourselves. Anybody else? Then to carry on saying, Cynthia difference.
The intoxicated phase of pleasure fascinates and emulates one towards enjoyment. From that, one awakes bored, frustrated due to its transient effect.
Would you like to comment?
So I suppose when you pleasure is a type of illusion, and so you get fascinated by it, and then at that moment you may feel very good about it, but because that is not pursuing the moral values, that because if you follow the moral values and set the good parameters to improve yourself, that will give you the real joy that is permanent or stays longer. But that is just momentary, usually material kind of pleasure. So that's not fulfilling what we're actually looking for, is just an illusion. So then, yeah, it will cause frustration, boredom, and this is just transient.
I think this phrase, this is really good phrase as well, but the way she explains it there, but the thing, the intoxicated phases of pleasure fascinates and emulates one towards enjoyment. And if we look at beings who are working towards something that's real and feel pleasure, it's a different radiation to those that are enjoying themselves. But there's almost, and if you have a mediumistic sense, it's almost as you can see the disturbance in their faces. And when we're aware of it, it's almost self-suicide. But when it's not, it's like disturbed reality. And then there's that sense of emptiness and frustration afterwards, where it's constant seeking for that pleasure. And it's so sad to see. But if we don't become aware of when it is that we're entering into this false pleasures, we're one of them, constantly going. And that's with food, that's with alcohol, that's with drugs, that's with relationships that are unbalanced.
Sexual experiences sometimes.
That's, because, so unbalanced, and it's just, there's that almost crazy look on people's faces, isn't it?
It is this agitation, the anguish that she was referring in the initial slides, is that anguish, is that restless reality, which are the illusions that we are holding.
And it's not something that we're judging in the sense of criticizing, but to notice that, we've been going through centuries like this. Because the Roman times, the kind of pleasures we used to participate in at the parties and the things like that. So it's really becoming aware of, okay, this is where I'm coming from. This is where I've transited through, and now where am I going to find my true pleasure?
Precisely.
What's really pleasure, and re-identify what does the word pleasure mean to me, and stop putting that dirty, negative feeling to it.
Correct. So what we are in here is to reflect in terms of self-knowledge. You rightly said we are not criticizing neither us nor the others, but we certainly are exploring possibilities for us to increase our understanding about ourselves and how can we promote us within the reality of reality. That makes sense, yeah? When one considers happiness, the satisfaction of social and physiological needs, one's awakening is always inevitably depressing, tiring, and devoid of real significance. Therefore, the bewildered multitude runs from one satisfaction to the other, always thirsty for new experiences and enjoyments. It just said that. And we can see that very present currently on earth. This emptiness of meanings of fulfillment that comes from reality. Then we may go back and forward, travel here and there, then we are excited while we are there, then we come back again when we are with us, and then we go back to that heaviness, that dissatisfaction, that depressive mood that we bring within.
What's really sad about that, and it just came to mind now, is the idea that we work so hard towards an illusion, only then to come back to reality again, feel depressed, and then we have to work really hard to go with that illusion. And it can be holidays, it could be the weekend, and we're working really hard so that in the weekend I can enjoy myself. I'm working all week to go to an illusion and then come back to reality, and the values are so distorted.
They are, as she mentioned in the previous slide. And then we referred to Lancelin on last Wednesday when he said that life on earth is an illusion, just following your thinking. But yeah, sometimes I think, oh my God, I always reminded that I'm already existing for centuries and centuries and centuries, and now I realize that I build a lot of illusions. Oh my God, now I need to work towards overcoming my own illusions. But that is the way forward. Because we need to also have compassion towards ourselves. Understanding the mechanism of evolution, we were much more primitive as we were now, and the illusions a lot of time, most of the time, have been developed on the unconscious level. Now we are studying more, and we can see how challenging it is, the illusions that we notice, and how challenging it is to overcome them.
And I think this is the way also, like the beginning of leading to the neurotic disorders we talked about earlier, because in this way of life we might hurt ourselves and others, and then come the moral conflicts, and then we hurt more, and then we got those values.
And then we go on in this circle up to the point that we choose now to embrace reality. Embracing reality starts with becoming aware who we truly are, immortal beings. And every thought, every feeling, every action brings consequences in our lives. And not saying that consequences are negative. We are here stimulating us in terms of goodness, healthy ways that we've saw previously. And as more as we practice, healthier we become, easier it is. Less affected we are by other shortcomings because we are taking responsibility for our own. And as we bring more light into our own shadows, we become more enlightened, therefore less reactive. So less wounded.
Learning Spiritism as a philosophy, the philosophers have always said that seeking for pleasure to diminish pain is always going to be a vicious cycle. Pleasure should be pleasure for pleasure's sake. If we're seeking it to be able to overcome something, then we really need to awaken and think, why is it that I need that glass of wine after a long day's work? Why is it that I feel like I need a long holiday after 3 months? Why is it that I feel like I need that? Not that I just want it.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to our, how can I say, our limitations or aspects which are not yet developed. Why do I need to have a cigarette is another example. Though we are changing the habits now, but are those values that we need external element to feel more at ease within. When we know that we bring all the resources within to soothe us, to center us, to calm us. Is that making sense? And then for us to conclude today, the final one. Then when making a mistake or facing failure, take the lesson and start over again. One's deepest reality lies under the transient personality, which is still immersed in illusion. This is certainly a short step from a decision.
Can you feel that we're confused?
Are you confused? Oh my God, where did I go? Oh, I didn't see, I was looking here, I ignored you. Okay, so we start over again. That was
Making a mistake or facing failure, take the lesson and start again. One's deepest reality lies under the transient personality, which is still immersed in illusion. This is certainly a short step from the decision of conquering it and achieving happiness.
So how do we conclude that now? What comes to our minds? This is the last slide in relation to reality and illusion. What do we take with from Joanna Jenner's words here? It's beautiful. I find it very beautiful the way that she puts it in. I find it very light-hearted.
Very simple as now the example. I've made a mistake. Apologies. Let me change it. And let's move on and continue that way. And let the ego aside and tell it it'll be okay, and move on.
What else comes to us? We did a mistake, we move on, we learn from it. What other examples do we have here?
Not to get depressed, not to feel too much guilty. And this is like a pressure, just basically keep going. If you make a mistake, don't worry too much.
Allow yourself, give yourself new opportunities, as many as you need to move forward. Put yourself, it's almost like the Joanna Jones is saying to all of us, put yourself in the chair as a learner. And as a learner, you will do mistakes at the point to get things right. But you don't need to depress yourself, as you rightly said. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to feel guilty. You just need to learn. Each time when you do a mistake, reflect back. What happened within that I behaved in that way? What is that telling about mind relationship? And be willing, freely willing to learn from it. Then the next time we will succeed better. And in that way, we are coming to the end of our study today. And I ask the loser to do our closing prayer, please.
Dear Lord, Master Jesus, benefactor spirits, friends, we are grateful for these moments where we're able to study a little bit more about our illusions, bringing forth the reality of life, our reality as immortal beings, full of potentials, full of capabilities, our path, our light, our spirits are destined for joy, are destined for happiness. We are destined for love. Let us become more aware of this in each moment of our lives, through the way in which we think, the way in which we behave, the words in which we use, wherever we may be. Let us choose to break the barriers of illusion with gentleness and kindness and patience. Let us choose to open ourselves up to positive experiences and enlighten ourselves and all of those around us. Thank you for these moments. May we meet each other again next week. So be it.
Much peace to all. Have a good week.